Does President Trump's social media executive order violate free speech? The answer coming up. Here's the scoop. President Trump signed an executive order to strip liability protection from social media platforms to censor opinions with which they disagree. Now, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg called the executive order censorship, while Twitter called it a threat to the future of online speech. But in so doing, both of those platforms admitted that they really shouldn't have had liability protection in the first place. The protection was extended to prevent internet service providers from being held liable for their users' content, not for their own. By claiming their speech is being impinged upon now, they are conceding that it is, in fact, their speech, not their users. Here's the background. Social media platforms have enjoyed liability protection under Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act, which was designed to limit obscene content on the internet and to delineate liability for that content. The section sought to create a common-sense middle ground between two court decisions. One was Cubby versus CompuServe, and the other was Stratton Oakmont Inc. versus Prodigy Services. In CompuServe, a federal court ruled that CompuServe could not be held responsible for any defamatory content on its user forums because it didn't monitor them. It was therefore merely the distributor and not the publisher of the materials. In Prodigy, the New York Supreme Court found that Prodigy was liable for all user content on its platform because it monitored and screened some of it. Taken together, the two rulings incentivized ISPs to turn a blind eye toward offensive content. If ISPs acting as good Samaritans by removing obscene material when they stumbled across it were going to be penalized by incurring liability for all that content, then they'd be insane to remove anything. To correct this, Section 230 included the Good Samaritan provision to remove the penalty. The choice of the title Good Samaritan for the provision is important. In the parable from the book of Luke, Jesus tells a Samaritan who happened upon a man who was beaten, stripped of his clothes, robbed, and left for dead. The Samaritan bound the man's wounds, clothed him, and put him in an inn at his own expense. If Twitter, Facebook, and Google were part of this parable, they wouldn't be the Good Samaritan. They'd be the robbers. They aren't merely passers-by moved to do good, but they're actively doing bad. Twitter, for example, allows pornographic materials to be accessed on its platform. The very materials the Communications Decency Act was designed to prevent. They're not good Samaritans. They're very, very bad Samaritans. President Trump was right to act to eliminate social media liability protections. They were extended long before these platforms existed, before screening technology was well developed, and were created to enlist internet service providers to help in the fight against obscenity. They were not offered to provide liability blank checks. The president's executive order would enhance free speech, not curb it, by creating disincentives to censorship. My group, the National Center for Public Policy Research, is one of the few groups fighting media bias in a practical, effective way. Through our free enterprise project led by Justin Danhoff, we file shareholder resolutions with media companies, challenge their CEOs at shareholder meetings, sponsor consumer petitions, and more. Taking on powerful corporations, advancing the less agenda means we don't get a lot of corporate support. So we must depend on individuals such as you. You can help by donating at nationalcenter.org/donate, and that's the scoop.